Hey YouTube, how is it going? I'm back again. I wanted to do another 6 scale figure review for a figure that I don't see a whole lot of reviews out there for, to hopefully help some collectors make the decision. Today I'm doing Threezero's Brienne of Tarth, and this will be a pretty quick one. I think she's still available. I just picked her up for like 140 something on Amazon Prime. It was a crazy good deal. I wasn't actually going to pick her up, but I mean that that price was too good, and so I bit the bullet on that one. And there's a lot of contention in the forums about whether they want to do it or not. Especially because this isn't the exclusive one. Now, the exclusive brand of Tarth, all the same stuff you see here, but also with a cloak that you can have her wear or not. Even if I had the exclusive one, I probably wouldn't have her wearing the cloak, so this worked just fine for me. And like I said, 150 in the neighborhood, I guess, because it was 140 something. It was too good of a deal to pass up. So anyways, we're going to get a quick look. Right out of the box, she doesn't come with much. She doesn't need to come with much, but she does not come with much. She has 2 relaxing hands, 2 gripping hands, and I think 2 fisted hands. Pretty standard affair. So I'm just going to have her, with her 1 gripping hand and her relaxing hand. And that's going to do it. Everything else is popped off in the box. Let's get a look at that head sculpt real quick. It is... get it to focus there. It's Threezero, so they tend to be a bit softer with production paint, which can sometimes leave a lot to be desired with details. I think for Brienne of Tarth it works pretty well. The actress that plays her has very soft features, and there's not really anything that this sculpt is missing that I think it needs. The stranding on the hair is pretty fine, and it's always a challenge to capture blonde in this scale, it seems. But Threezero's done a decent job with some shading thrown in there over a very, very almost platinum yellow color. And you can see from this angle, I mean, it's a pretty good Brienne of Tarth sculpt. She has quite the forehead, especially with her hair slicked back there. Very pronounced, very big forehead. And it looks like her. Of course, when I get a Threezero Brienne of Tarth figure, I almost, especially coming from Threezero, I don't care as much about the sculpt. If it's good, then awesome. If it's okay, then whatever. I kind of expect that. If it's dismal, then I'll still complain along with everybody else in the groups. What's really important to me is the outfit. And I'm pleased to say that Threezero has once again done a stellar job on the outfit for Brienne of Tarth. She has this awesome dark blue, almost black armor with some shading, weathering thrown over the top of it. That's what Threezero does. Threezero, they do weathering, and it looks good all the way through. The armor, and one of my straps popped off. I'll stick some glue on there to fix it. It's held on somewhat realistically with some leather straps going around the side. The belts, she got this sword from Jaime Lannister, so the belt is fittingly crimson Lannister gold. Definitely a lot flashier, a lot more regal, a lot more showy than anything else Brienne has going on. It's fitting because, again, it's a gift from a Lannister, and it's done in a soft rubber that, doesn't feel as good as it looks. It looks the part, and that's what's important for Brienne here. This part of her outfit, the armor skirt type thing, I forget what it's called, is also done in a soft rubber, and it allows for quite a good bit of posability. With the figure, it just kind of gets out of the way, drapes over naturally, And yes, now that we're getting to it, you will notice that she has some gigantic, long, lanky legs. So they use the hound body, I think, and it's really lanky. Her proportions might not quite be accurate. I feel like she has a tiny, tiny torso in figure form. And part of her height, because she is a big woman, is going to be more than just having long legs. However, when she's posed a bit more statically, it doesn't really matter how awkward and long those legs are, because it's covered by the skirt. But her hips probably go all the way up to about there in figure form, and that's a bit too high for realism. But again, you can't really tell when you just have her set up in a, get her in a slightly bent pose and looking off to the side. It doesn't affect it too much. The lankiness isn't really going to be a problem. But if you go for something extreme, then yeah, the awkward lankiness of those legs might come into play a little bit more. I want to talk real quick about my favorite bit of detail on this piece. And it's not the sword itself, but the scabbard for the sword. Oh, look at that. That's awesome. The paisley regal print pattern on there. When I got this figure out of packaging, Brienne, she's kind of a plain character. Plain, darker armor, especially in the latter seasons. But that sword and the sheath is just the detail that Threezero got on there, I thought was impeccable. And had I known how good this was going to look, it's sharp. It is so sharp. Had I known how good that portion was going to look from the get-go, I probably wouldn't have waited so long to get this figure. However, I did, and I got a good deal for it. So, real quick, let's go over the articulation for Brienne of Tarth. It's about everything you'd expect. The shoulders, she's hindered by this armor a little bit, so her arms will go in that much. You can still get a decent two-handed sword holding pose, and I will probably do that later in the video. They go out to there, so that's really not hindered too much by the armor. Back, double jointed elbow gives you a ton of motion. Brienne can get that hand all the way up. She can, have a sip of a glass of wine or something if that's how you pose her. And your standard wrist joint articulation for 6 scale figures. There is not going to be anything that you can do with that torso. All of this bend is going to come from the hips, and that's because that armor is hard and it is in the way. And you probably just heard that on camera, but yes, it is the Threezero's hound body, so it uses ratcheted joints in those lower limbs, and that's really okay. It helps with holding a pose. So yeah, the legs, they go out quite far in all directions, more than you'll ever really want to pose her with. Good double jointed knees. She can hold many nice deep stances, and the boot is cut at the ankle to allow for plenty of ankle motion. And now it's really about it. The sword, she's her Valyrian steel. What was this one? Oathkeeper, I believe. Yeah, Oathkeeper, the one that she got from Jaime Lannister. Fits into that hand just fine. It's really bulbous towards the top here, which I think might actually be accurate to the show. I don't know how good it would work in real life, but you slide that in and she holds it nice and tight, which is of paramount importance. In my opinion, with these fantasy figures, I like them to hold their swords nice and tight. Get a good pose. I don't like when the weight of the sword pushes the wrist peg and it's all floppy or it's just dangling, sitting loosely in their hands. I'm not about that. And that actually doesn't look too bad. And I'm not trying too hard to get a pose that I'll keep her in right now. But as you can see, she can get 2 hands on it. for a fighting action stance. Hold it up for a block, a guard, or something. I'm not really sure. Yeah, there you go. It's a perfectly functional figure of Brienne of Tarth, and it looks really good, in my opinion. This is one of Threezero's better offerings in their Game of Thrones line. One more time, I'm going to go from the bottom to the top. There's the boots. You know, it's Threezero. They do weathering and to the upteenth degree. Those boots look good. They do look like leather boots. She has her blue underpants, that beautiful, beautiful scabbard for Oathkeeper. Her armor looks awesome. They were able to capture a lot of detail in it, doing what Threezero usually does with the sculpted rubber, and it does get out of the way quite nicely. Coming up to her arms, this is a cloth mesh type of material with sculpted rubber over it. Again, doesn't hinder articulation at all. Then her shoulder armor with 2 pieces on there. These guys right here are just sort of held on with a leather strap. And then that head sculpt. And the Valyrian steel sword, Oathkeeper. And that's going to really do it for Brienne of Tarth. If you are on the fence about whether or not to pick her up, I would say absolutely go for it. She is a cool figure and a great character. She is the truest, most noblest knight in Westeros throughout Game of Thrones. And I thought that was an interesting perspective. Also a descendant from Sir Duncan the Tall. She's a cool character. And at $140, $150 or so, whatever it was on Amazon the last I checked, that's great value for a huge figure to get into your collection. She has a lot of shelf presence, and she looks really good next to the Hound or next to Arya or next to any of your fantasy figures. If there's something that I missed and you do want me to look into it or answer it for you, please just let me know in the comments, and I will happily respond or create a dialogue with you. Because like I said, just kind of bored here in quarantine and not much else to do besides talk about hobbies with fellow hobbyists. And that's all I've got for you guys today. All right, stay happy, stay healthy, and happy collecting. Bye-bye.